All right, welcome everybody. My name is Caitlin LeMay. I'm the director of the US and FGMC network. I am so honored and really looking forward to this event. I will be your moderator for the next hour. And so this event, as you know, is about the intersectionality of innovation and positive masculinity to prevent FGMC. And we are, of course, hosting this event in honor of the Day of Zero Tolerance for FGMC. As I'm sure many, if not all of you know, the International Day of Zero Tolerance, it was first started in 2003, and it's a United Nations sponsored event to really raise awareness around FGMC and to really call for globally for us to work together to end this practice. So we're really excited to be having this event in honor of the International Day of Zero Tolerance and to really, again, be talking about this innovation between intersectionality between innovation and also positive masculinity. So without further ado, I really want to give our two panelists some time to introduce themselves and share a little bit about why they're here and more about their work. So we are joined today by Manaz Harrison of Last Mile for D, and we are also joined by Reverend Dominic Mizzolo. And so I'm going to hand it off to you, Reverend, to introduce yourself and to share more about what you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity and also for meeting other people from different places. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm calling from Kenya. I'm Reverend Dominic Misolo, ordained priest in the Anglican Church of Kenya. I'm a male champion for gender justice, and I got prompted to do this work because I grew up in a polygamous family, seeing my father abusing my mother. And growing as a child, I never liked that. And I kept on asking the big question, why is my father beating my mom? So that actually prompted me to think about societal structures that actually promote male power and actually also promote submission of women and also oppression of women. I've worked for the last 10 years, working with the local churches and local communities and local civil society groups on masculinity and gender-based violence. When working in the church circles, I work on biblical gender equality, where actually we share more about the Bible, talking about equality and justice for men and women. And also talking with the whole community, we talk about positive masculinity, we're talking about power relations, power dynamic, and also how we can actually end patriarchy and gender-based violence. I've worked with women in the church, actually here in Kenya, greatly, and empower survivors who actually are abused. I've also worked with men promoting positive masculinity, and I love what I'm doing because actually we are impacting society in one way or the other. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so excited to learn more about you and your work a little bit later as we move into the panel discussion. So thank you again for being here. Manaz, off to you to introduce yourself and your work.
Thank you, Caitlin, and hello to everyone, and welcome to our small presentation here. I'm Manaz, and I have founded the Last Mile for D in the passion that there is not enough jail in the world to put the perpetrators in, and not enough shelter to house the victims. We need to change the way people think, and we need to change attitudes in order for us to really prevent women and girls from being abused, and learning and knowing about their rights to health and safety from abuse. So that's the impetus behind Last Mile for D. And we also have chosen to do this work in the remotest areas of the world. And that is because we have seen that the the impact is greater, where people do not have really access to information about what is their rights. So we're working with the communities that are really off the grid, without running waters, and the closest hospital being 5-7 days walk. So that's where we are. We're very passionate about what we do, and alongside of training activists, we also really do measure the impact of the work we do. And as we go forward, as you ask, we have more chances to talk. You will hear more about the way we are measuring the impact in prevention of female genital mutilation. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you so much, Manaz. And thank you for providing the space for this very important discussion that we're going to be having. For our participants in this webinar, please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat as well. We really want this space to be like a living room discussion. And so we want it to be engaging, and we want you all to participate as well. So please feel free to use the chat, talk with each other, introduce each other. We are going to be moving into a panel discussion where we have questions for both Reverend Mazzolo and Manaz. And after the panel discussion, we will have time for a Q&A. So please put any questions that you have in the chat. My colleague Patricia will be monitoring and will pull out any questions that come up, and we will do our best to get to those in time before the end. So again, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Please write any questions that you have for our panelists today. And let's jump right in and get started.
Just
go ahead.
1 second is that we put a poll up, and we'd like for everybody to actually answer the poll. That would be lovely. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Manaz. All right. So my first question is for you, Reverend Mazzolo. And first, I want to really commend you for using your voice, especially as a religious leader, and taking action to prevent gender-based violence. So with all that you are doing, how do you reconcile the work you do with various narratives that the Bible is used to perpetuate patriarchal norms that oppress women and ultimately enable violence against women? So if you could just speak to whether the Bible speaks against toxic masculinity, or does it promote positive masculinity?
Thank you. Thank you so much once again. I want to start by saying that as a theologian and as a Christian, more particularly as a priest, I believe that the Bible from Genesis to Revelation teaches about equality for men and women. When we talk about human beings made in the image of God, actually we are talking about God who cares and who values both men and women created in his or her image. I therefore believe that we are affirming equality for both men and women. And therefore, many times when we hear people actually talking about that the Bible is being used to perpetuate patriarchy and also promote gender-based violence, actually it is out of misinterpretation. When you read the Bible in the right context, with the right attitude, the Bible actually portrays a just God that values both men and women. How do I reconcile my work with various narratives that the Bible is used to perpetuate patriarchal norms that oppress women? I want to say that it's a fact that the Bible speaks against toxic masculinity, and that it is true that the Bible also promotes positive masculinity. Through our curriculum that we actually have been promoting with various groups in churches and also in the community, we say that actually the Bible portrays 3 worldviews. Worldview number 1 is where actually the Bible talks about the ideal creation, where God created both men and women equally and gave them equal responsibility. Then we come to the second worldview, which actually is the fallen world, which now the world is in chaos, and we are seeing chaos coming, things are falling apart. And here it actually is where we are seeing patriarchy being promoted, which is not the will of God. The will of God, we find the will of God in the creation story and also what God speaks about it by himself or by herself. And therefore, many times when you talk about the fallen world, which many people preach about, many pastors also talk about, it is a fallen world. It does not reflect the mind and the perspective of God concerning men and women. And therefore, anything that actually we take from the fallen world and want to justify for human relationship, sometimes it doesn't affirm God's will for us. Then we come to the third worldview, which actually is the reconciled worldview, which we are talking about Christ Jesus. When we talk about the New Testament, we are talking about the Christ who actually is coming to restore us to the creation order and actually to heal us from the fallen world. Where actually the Bible says that there's no woman, no female, nor male, because we are one in Christ Jesus. And there's so many places in the New Testament where Jesus actually portrayed that men and women are equal. The way Christ treated women and the way actually he talked about women wherever he was. So we are seeing Christ coming to reconcile us to himself and also taking patriarchy away when actually he died in the cross and telling us that all is over. Now there's no male or female, we can treat each other equally. Therefore, I want to affirm very strongly that it is out of misinterpretation. It is out of actually taking our culture within that the context of preaching that many times we portray God or the Bible as oppressive to women or promoting patriarchy, which is false. So thank you so much for that question. But I want to tell you that the Bible talks against toxic masculinity. The Bible promotes positive masculinity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I really appreciate your insight as to what the Bible actually says around masculinity and particularly gender equality and equity as well. So thank you. I appreciate that. Manas, my first question for you is, how can innovation be used to prevent and eradicate FGMC and other forms of gender-based violence? And is this even possible in the face of increasing technology-facilitated gender-based violence?
Of course, thank you for the shedding light, Dominic, and Caitlin, for your question. Of course, we have to be incredibly vigilant into what we do because, as we all know, technology is being used, in fact, to bully men and women, and it's a critical aspect of our lives to really be vigilant handling data. What we do is that we have a password protected environment for anybody that actually has access to our data. So our teammates sign in with basically I'm going to share my screen for a second. Host needs to disable it. To show you that basically, if you enter our data field, you must have permission to do so. So let us go and see how do we actually enter the realm. So you're on our website, and then here we have a platform that our colleagues get in, that this is where we registered girls and we engage boys and the communities. So as you see, we must have direct password. The reason you're going to look at this screen and be able to see a lot of almost everything is because this is an administrator's screen. Otherwise, individuals, when they come in, they actually are only able to see their own registrations and so on. In here, you see that we have registered closer to 5,000 girls, and in various schools, we have 38 or so schools that are part of our area of our influence, and we actually have been able to, by the way our methodology works, we have been able to really use technology and gather the information real time and be able to actually prevent FGM from happening. So I hope I answered your question at this moment.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for giving us a little glimpse into the work that you do and the platform that you use. And I think it's so important to think about, when we are using innovation and particularly technology, how can we do that safely? And because we don't want to cause unintentional harm, right? So thank you. I appreciate that. So, as we all know, we're here honoring the International Day of Zero Tolerance, and Reverend Mazzillo, I would love for you to share with us about what is the connection between positive masculinity and today, the International Day of Zero Tolerance.
Thank you so much for that question, and also Manas for actually telling us how technology is very important actually in promoting all this agenda and also talking about equality for men and women. I want to start by saying that FGM/C is primarily performed to control women's sexuality, especially in our cultures here in East Africa, and actually to promote male superiority. And therefore, FGM is also used as a tool of control and submission. When we talk about FGM, actually we have men who are transformed. We can also talk about men who can transform, who talks about positive masculinity, understand the harm that FGM brings to women and girls. So when we teach men about positive masculinity and we are having men who are transformed in the community, they are boldly talking about women and girls created the image of God. So when actually I see a woman and a girl going through FGM as a transformed man, I feel hurt because actually I'm seeing the image of God being damaged in that person. So positive masculinity teaches men and boys to value and respect women. That's point number one, as equal human beings. So there's no need for me to think about FGM cutting a girl or cutting a woman, because I know that girl is precious, is made in the image of God. Number two, positive masculinity also teaches us that women who are transformed actually need to protect women and girls from harm and gender-based violence, because we know that actually FGM is the worst form of gender-based violence, denying women what belongs to them, giving men power over women's sexuality, and also actually causing permanent harm to a human being created in the image of God. We can also say that positive masculinity helps men to challenge and transform social norms that justify female genital cutting and patriarchy. So I want to say that actually positive masculinity can be used strongly to advocate for zero tolerance, because it gives men the worldview to see themselves as people who actually created together, people who actually bond together in a relationship, and therefore we are protecting each other because that's what we believe in, that's what we can do, that's what we can actually achieve in a society that is really violent, a society that doesn't value one gender based on gender. So I want to appreciate the program that actually try to transform men to think otherwise, and also to think positively about their power, about their relationship, about how they can actually coexist together with their female, with their wives, with their daughters as equal human beings. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And as you said, I think in your introduction, talking about how FGMC is a patriarchal practice, right? That it's so important that men and boys are involved in ending this practice globally, and positive masculinity is essential for that. So thank you for explaining that and really highlighting the importance of positive masculinity and how that relates to today of International Day of Zero Tolerance. Manaz, I want to go back to you. Can you share some concrete ways that your organization, Last Mile for D, is using innovation for the prevention of FGMC, and what's the impact? What's the success rate?
Thank you. And Dominic, I know why. Every time you talk and every time in your presence, I know why I like to work with you. It is enlightening. It's wonderful to hear what you say, and we are actually hoping that together we can reach out to a new cohort of girls in his neighborhood, and looking at his impact with the fathers and the brothers, and then our impact directly with the girls. So thank you, Dominic. Let's go back in again, sharing the screen with you, and letting you see that basically how do we measure our impact, which is basically immense by the way that we capture data. So what we have done is that we every time we have had, it's now my turn that my computer is freezing. So basically what we have done is we enroll the girls in our program. At the point of enrollment, the girls are being interviewed about the risk that they have for FGM or early marriage or harmful practices. So based on what they tell us, then we can see that at the baseline, we have 87, 90% of the girls that are at risk. Or they actually tell us that they have already been cut. That was the point that we were able to really get across the first time that we piloted this program in Korea, that the community said, no, it's not happening here. And I put up the data on the wall and I said, look, your own girls are telling us, and that they fear they're going to be cut. And also look how many of them, I think in 400 some interviews that we had done by the time we were doing the community forum, 20 of the girls were already cut. So our system was able to actually identify that. So sharing this kind of information with the government, with the officials, with the community, it basically broke the silence, because data speaks. Data speaks in a way that nothing else can speak. So we were able to just show, and we continue to share these kinds of information, and basically plan around who's in harm's way and what can we do about it. So we do the baseline assessment, then we have educational modules, and in those educational modules we take them through the harms, the psychosocial problems, the physical problems, and so on. And then we assess again, mid-level assessment, and we see that we went from 87% telling us that they're at risk into 40%. What has happened is that we have built their confidence, we have built their knowledge base, they know now what to do. And then we do another series of educational modules with them, that this time they learn about their rights, they learn into who is the government is responsible for safety, what are the treaties, so all the laws and the rights. So we take them through that, and then we do another assessment. And that is when we realize that, oh, we went from 87% being in danger to maybe 1%. So that's how we are able to measure the impact. That's why we have made such a dent in the communities we work, that the other sub-counties want us to be there, the other schools want us to be there. Why are you not in our program? So my motto is that as fast as we've got funding, we will grow as fast as we can. We are able to indeed grow as fast as possible. So sorry that the Firefox is just having a hissy. So once you take the question elsewhere, then I will try to see if I can revitalize this thing.
All right, no worries, Manaz. And as soon as we need it, it breaks down on us, right? That's
exactly.
But thank you so much about sharing the impact of your data. And I think particularly around what you shared on prevention. And I know you and I have had a lot of conversations one-on-one about using data for prevention. My background and my passion is around violence prevention. And I think a lot of times people think about data as understanding the scope of the problem and don't realize that it's actually used for prevention as well. And so thank you so much for really highlighting that and showing how the work that you're doing and the data that you're collecting can actually and is ending FGMC. So thank you. Reverend Dominic, I want to go back to you, and my final question for you. You've mentioned positive masculinity. You've talked extensively about that and the importance of positive masculinity. Can you share what does that look like exactly? And does positive masculinity show up differently based off of culture, religion, socioeconomic status, etc.?
Thank you. I want to start by saying that positive masculinity is the expression of attitude and behaviors, including characters, strength, and virtues which any gender might have, that has been embodied and acted in by males and for the common good, both individually and for the community. I want to say that across many cultures, especially in my cultures here in Kenya, you find that actually positive masculinity are expressed differently. These perceived values sometimes actually varies greatly because you find how one is done here is different, how the other one is done in USA, actually one is done in Japan. So you find that actually positive masculinity are expressed differently with different cultures. Like in the United States, you find that actually we have another very positive masculinity, another strong negative masculinity that actually promote power and things like that. If you come to Africa, it's the same. You are talking about ethnicity, things like that. But when we are transformed and we talk about positive masculinity, that actually our mindset has been set. We are actually not talking about dominance as a man. As a man, I don't talk about dominance. As a leader, actually, I talk about servant leadership. So it gives meaning to the things that actually many times patriarchy destroy and give a different meaning. Because in a patriarchal society, the meaning of leadership is different within actually the culture that embrace positive masculinity. Because within a positive masculinity, I see servant leadership. Within positive masculinity, I don't see dominance. Within positive masculinity, I see success for everyone. When actually I have power and my partner also have power, that power is actually used for the good for the community. But in a patriarchal society, it expresses differently because it is for me to oppress and actually to dominate. So I want to say that these values differ from culture to culture, and we actually really love to scale up our model because we believe, especially in the African context, that what we need actually is positive masculinity to challenge our worldview, to challenge the structures that actually promote bad leadership, bad governance, to promote families that actually thrive together, seeing women and men growing together as equal human beings, and also giving space for women and girls actually to thrive and also to go to school, to go to work, and also bring the economy to a level that actually supports everyone. Because many times in our training, we have been saying that one gender is left behind. And when we talk about poverty in Africa, actually we reflect that because many women, we call them housewives. Sometimes we don't value what they're doing at home. While actually they're doing a lot at home, still we call them, they don't have a job because they are housewives. So I want to recommend positive masculinity to everyone because this is the way to go. This is where actually we can co-create a society where each and every person is valued, each and every person actually thrives, each and every person sees what the meaning of life and how we can actually coexist together. So I really love how sometimes it expresses. It's sometimes a challenge in different in religion when it comes to religion, because as a Christian, I can promote positive masculinity within Christian circle. But when you go to actually Muslim world, Islamic world, you find it again different in different ways, because even sometimes women and men in Muslim in the mosque, they don't actually come together. They pray differently because actually power is bestowed on a man. And sometimes in Christianity also we see that some churches value all male leadership. They don't actually recommend women for ordination. They have church policies, they have dogmas that actually reduce women to submission. So we are calling for our churches and religion and our communities to embrace post-masculinity, because this is the way that our society will thrive. Our society will actually see the sense and also see the value in each everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. I really appreciate that. And you and I have briefly talked about how I've done some work around positive masculinity in the US. And so I really appreciate you highlighting the similarities and the differences, like in different cultures, different regions of the world. But again, there are some similarities as you've highlighted. And I also appreciate you talking about really the ripple effect of positive masculinity and the true impact that it can have on entire communities. And then I think that really emphasizes the importance of positive masculinity and the work that you are doing. So thank you again, and thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Manaz, my last question for you, and if you have your Firefox working again, perfect. Please feel free to go back to what you wanted to show us before, but could you talk about how this innovation, how can it be replicated in other countries? And if so, can it be innovated for other types of violence? As you specifically, address FGMC, but could an innovative process occur where a country can use the platform to prevent gender-based violence, track it, and intervene when it occurs?
Thanks again, Dominic. I love listening to you. And thank you, Caitlin, for the question and managing the whole process. So yes, we can replicate as fast as we have abilities to, expand. Our program, the platform is designed. Are you able to see my screen at this point? No, okay, then let's try it again. Okay, so here we are. So what we do is basically registration of the girls. As I said, there are these many girls, and what we are able to basically show, for example, is let's have a look at a group of girls that we enrolled in May of 22. And these girls, we will just measure their impact. Our program runs almost in a school year, so it's 10-12 months that we do that, and then we enroll the girls, assess them, take them through the modules, assess them midway, and then so on. So let's have a look and see what did we have for the first interview of this cohort. So the first interview of the cohort is that we engaged in May of 2022, and then they graduated per se from our program about a year later. So let's submit this, and as you see, at the point of enrolling them, from the 1,750 girls, we learned 1,473 of them are in danger. They told us they're at risk. So we quickly know. So our system identifies you at risk, and then it is red. If you're safe and you know what to do and all those kinds of things, then the system identifies you as green. So you look at, I'm just going to, in the interest of time, I'm just going to be very brief. So you see that in the cohort of 1,750, we have 8 that is already cut. We have only 270 girls that are telling us they know what to do, their tribe doesn't cut, and stuff like that. So if we go then to the second interview of the very same group, and now you look at what we have done, so our education and the impact of what we have done with them. Let's see what happens. through the educational modules, through constant intervention with by our teammates, the field officers, we went from 1,473 to only 460. Do you see the impact? And also you see the impact of data, because here we can then share with authorities saying, here, look what's happening. And then if we take you to the next level, when they have gone now through the rest of the modules, and you see that there are only a handful of them left. So it is by far easier for the government, local governments, national governments to actually deal with confined information than this abyss of you don't know. We know thousands of girls are getting cut, but okay, can we show who's in danger? Can we stop them from becoming statistics? Here you go. You see that it's almost 100% reduction. 1,473, you're now down to only 14. So these 14 then became the center of what we needed to do and how we needed to sort of keep an eye on them, continuous, checking on, and so on. This all is possible by these educational modules. So we have all these modules readily available for our teammates, and they just pop it open, and they basically teach these in the classes as they appear in every class. The other thing that I want to point out is that field supervisors, officers, they all complete their work right here. So when we say we did something, we actually have documentation that goes right with it. So this is on January 7th. This was so let's have a look and see what we have in this particular meeting. You see the name of the field officer, the name of the school. We're looking and seeing that there are 58 female that attended, 32 male, and then we want to ask them if they have heard our radio ad, because we start our program with a radio ad. And then if they know the harms of FGM, and look what we get in here. Many of them are telling you no. So then here we stop, and then our teammates take them through an educational module for parents, for community members. Then we ask the questions again from them to see, did we educate anybody? Did we inform anybody? Did we sensitize? And we see that we have gone from so many not knowing to so many now knowing. And furthermore, you have people that are willing to speak up and show that they know that this is harmful, and they want to speak up on behalf of our program and so on. So these are pretty much, and then we have reports, of course, for every one of them. The other issue is that we have communication. So today on May the 5th, which was yesterday, you see that they went to this school and they did review of the module and performance of role play. So that this has been a new wave of training that we have done for our teammates to really be total participatory involvement. So let me pause and see if I answered your question and if I can answer anymore.
Thank you so much. One thing that I saw that I want to point out, because I think it really ties everything together, is on the last screen, there was a question about, are you confident to speak against FGMC with your community, right? And all the participants said yes, except for one, which was a man. And so I think that really highlights this importance of positive masculinity and why is that man not comfortable, right? And so I just needed to point that out, because I think that just really kind of summarizes like that men are often uncomfortable talking about FGMC. And so like if we can help build their confidence and promote this positive masculinity like Reverend Dominic is doing, I think that can just really amplify the work that's being done. So
absolutely. Thank you, Caitlin, for raising that. And the other interesting is that we have graphs of their ages and whatnot. And many of the times, the older generation is the one that's not comfortable talking about it. And men are the one that are not comfortable talking about it. So thanks for calling that out.
All right, so we are going to move into the Q&A portion of this event. I've seen one question come in so far, but please, for all the folks who are attending, please put any additional questions that you have in the chat, and we will do our best to get to them. But our first question is for you, Reverend. And the question is, did God demonstrate any form of positive masculinity we can use to advocate for gender equality or speak against violence against women?
Yes, yes, for sure. Thank you. When you go through the Bible critically, you will see a God of justice, a God who created a man, also created a woman, and gave them equal responsibility. Giving women and men equal responsibility in our society is what is lacking. Many times, toxic masculinity believes in male dominance and doing everything, not recognizing the contribution of women. So when we are seeing a God who actually created both men and female, male and female, in his own image and giving them equal responsibility to go and care for the earth, actually we are seeing a God that actually is portraying apostate masculinity. The fallen world actually is not ruled by God. It's ruled by darkness, where many a times we are seeing part-taking coming in, money coming to dominate, marriages coming, actually the many complications on women. It's not actually sometimes what we call the will of God, how marriage actually has fallen in the fallen world. So coming to Jesus Christ, who actually we say is God the Son. As Christian, we know is a manifestation of God the Son. Jesus, as a man, actually portrayed a transformed man, a completely actually doing things differently, and that's why he was constantly at loggerheads with the religious leaders and also with the government, because he wanted to uplift women and tell the society that the way you are treating women is actually not approved by God. This is not what God ordained when he created male and female in the Garden of Eden before the fall. So there's so many passages in the Bible that God is calling us actually for reconciliation, for men and women to come and work together as equal human beings, that we recognize the value and dignity in each and every creation, that human beings can move together. So actually there's so many, I don't want to do Bible study now and give references where I have, but there's so many places in the Bible that we are seeing a God who cares, a God of justice, a God of love, who love both men and women equally and give equal responsibility. That is what positive masculinity also looks for and is working for. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We actually have another question for you from Samuel. Samuel's asking, where did the concept of FGM originate? If you're able to answer that, and I can share too, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yes, thank you. I know Manasseh is working thoroughly on FGM, but possibly she can talk about it. But what I know, actually, every community, cultures that actually do FGM, they have their own stories of origin. And in the Bible, most of the time actually talking about the circumcision of male. And most of the time doesn't talk about the FGM, the cutting of women. So these are sometimes are cults that are not actually ordained by God. They are not approved by the scripture. Sometimes when we read the Bible, we think that everything in the Bible actually speaks for God. Others were actually cultures showing us how God was maneuvering the salvation through different cultures. Not meaning that those cultures that God maneuvered salvation are actually perfect. Cultures are not perfect. What is perfect is the gospel of Christ that challenges patriarchy and challenges culture to be correct and to treat each other with dignity and value.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Manaz, did you want to share anything as well?
And please also, Caitlin, you're an expert as well, so step in right after I do. Again, thanks, Dominic, for all you share. I have one of my peeves is that people hide behind culture and behind tradition and religion. I see it as a screen that you want to just anything and everything that you don't want to talk about and you don't want to change, you just go right behind that screen and you hide there. So that's I throw that out and begin talking about it. But historically, what I have read and my understanding is that FGM is not really referenced in any one of the religious books of whether it's Bibles, Quran, and it is not addressed there. And as Dominic said, that it's mostly the circumcision of the boys. But then there is, based on my understanding, it's that it started in Egypt. So it's a pharaonic tradition. It started at the times of pharaohs, and it was basically so is it today, actually. It's an economic decision that's being made. It's the girls are the commodity and nobody cares about anything else but the price that they can get. All of us know that, there is this dowry of 10 cows. So the father becomes wealthy with 10 cows. So now the son can go and propose to someone else with 5 cows, and nobody pauses and says, what's happening to the girl in this process? So this was the same kind of approach in Pharaoh's time. The families and the parents that didn't have access to the Pharaoh's court, they decided that they were going to actually show that their girls were not touched, that they were really stoned up and so on. As if you see, a sort of that's the type 3 of FGM that WHO, World Health Organization, identifies. That's where historically was practiced, and so the women and girls in less fortunate economic situations were exposed to FGM, so then they can become the courtiers, they can become concubines for the pharaohs. And so when that happened, the elite of the Egyptian society actually said, oh, we got to do that too. So it actually changed economic hands. It went from low socioeconomic into high socioeconomic society to just basically practice the same kind of practice and expose their girls to the courts of pharaohs. And now today, I think somewhat is again reversed, and it's heavily dominant by the people with less education. You're seeing it in remote areas. You hardly see it in capital cities of whether it's Addis, whether it's Nairobi, or Dar es Salaam. You see mostly done in the remote communities where socioeconomic levels are low, and you see education of the women and girls are a lot less, parents are less educated. So it's sort of, that is my understanding of how this whole thing had come about. And let me pause. Caitlin, please add on if I miss anything.
No, I think, you summed it up nicely. There's still a lot we don't know about the origins, but that is, there are anthropologists who have really been studying it, and that's everything that Manaz shared is what we currently know about it. And it does predate, as Manaz talked about, it predates all major religions. It predates Christianity, it predates Islam. And so, it is not a religious practice. But religion is often used as rationale for it or justification for it. So I think that's a really important distinction to make. And I also want to say that, FGM is truly a global issue. There's a lot of assumptions about where it happens in the world, but FGMC has been documented in over 92 countries. It has been documented on every continent of the world except for Antarctica for obvious reasons. And it's happening here in the US where we work, or where I work. And so I think that this is such an important note to make. It also happens in all religions, right? All cultures. In the US, we see it happening in white Christian communities in the Midwest. Although here it's often framed as an immigrant issue, but we know that's not true. And so I think there's still a lot of misconceptions around FGMC globally. And I think that's why events like this are so important to really talk about the context and the nuances around FGMC. So thank you both. We are getting close to the end. Before we do conclude, though, I would love for both Reverend Mazzolo and Manaz to share just some final words. So Manaz, I'll start with you. Any last words that you want to share?
Just really and truly thank you for all of you who have attended. I see somebody from Indonesia, that's way late there, but thank you for joining this session. I think it's critical to get the word out that the data doesn't have to be static. The data can prevent, and the data should be used for prevention. So when we talk about data, it is not just saying, oh, 200 million women and girls have undergone FGM globally. Data is critical to really and truly be used for prevention. So I want to make sure that I drive this home, that we are able to show the impact of our work because we are able to document it and we are able to share it. And because of it, we have been able to move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Reverend Mazzolo, your final words.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this webinar. And it is my pleasure talking to you about my work and my passion to end gender-based violence. I want to conclude by saying that this African proverb which says that set a lion to kill a lion. We will not actually end patriarchy and gender-based violence when we actually we leave men behind. We need programs that actually talks about positive masculinity, programs that actually brings men and women, men and boys together to talk about gender-based violence, talk about negative masculinity, talk about power dynamic, talk about how we can come together to end violence, because it is very critical for us to do reconciliation. And I want to say that the Bible is a powerful tool that actually we can use for empowerment. Throughout the Bible, we see many stories and narratives that actually point to reconciliation, point to the value that actually we hold as human beings. So the gospel of Christ stand high to challenge us to think about post-masculinity and to end gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you. I know I've said that multiple times throughout, but I really, truly mean it. Thank you both for the work that you do to end FGMC, and for sharing your wisdom and your work with us today. Thank you to all of the participants here as well for engaging in the chat, asking questions, introducing yourselves. Thank you so much. Attending webinars like this are also important to ending FGMC. So thank you for taking the time to learn more and to engage in these important discussions. So with that, thank you, everybody. Happy International Day of Zero Tolerance. Let's keep doing this important work to end FGMC globally. And I hope that you all have a good rest of your day, whatever point in your day that you are at. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.